With so many different lights available to filmmakers, it's easy to think that we need them to create beautiful, cinematic looking footage. But I wanted to make this video to show that achieving the cinematic film look doesn't require any expensive equipment at all. It all comes down to one thing, and that is control of the light that is available to all of us. Now let's get into this. So for these example breakdowns, we will have three quite different locations. This beautiful lake where I am now, our spare guest room back home at the house, and a workshop where I'm making some diffusion frames from scrap metal. So let's start with the guest room. For this example, I'm going to show how I control the light coming from these three windows to make a nicely lit image. So this is how I look now. It's not horrendous, but it's certainly not cinematic. So let's change it. The middle blind is completely shut, and then the last blind is slightly open a crack just to give this nice bit of light onto the wall behind me. And in the haze it actually comes up as a shaft of light coming through. The normal price of this fog machine new is $50 with a 10-year warranty, which I thought was a pretty unbelievable deal. So I feel like we're almost there now. There would be an optional bit of colour. I think I prefer it with the backlight off. I mean, this bedside light. But maybe if it was more of a, a talking head interview or a YouTube video, you'd have that on. So this big blackboard here is what's known as negative fill, and that's to stop any reflected light from the rest of the room bouncing onto this side of my face. And lighting it is to basically keep this side of my face in as dark a shadow as possible. And then here we've just got a diffusion, which is from my 5-in-1 reflector. And the reason for that is it'll soften the natural daylight coming in, so it wraps around my face a bit more and it's a bit more flattering. And then to the back edge of that, I've got a tiny little battery powered light. And the only reason that is there, it's just on half power, is just to give my eyes a little bit of light in my eyes so I don't look too dead. And if you see just here, there's a shadow going across the bottom of the reflector. That is a board behind to basically flag the light coming onto this table, because this table was, to begin with, was super overexposed. So my main reason for wanting to give this example is just to show that you don't need big expensive lights to create beautiful cinematic lighting. In some ways I see them as a bit of a luxury item. You can also use the Sun Tracker apps and just work with available natural light that you've got. So for example, if you pointed at these windows, you can see that, between 2 and 5 p.m, you're going to have sunlight coming from that direction. And it doesn't matter if it's a cloudy day or a sunny day, because that's still going to be the brightest part of the sky coming in this way. And then you can just work with that. You can just control it, you can flag it, you can diffuse it, you can shape it. Now let's see what I did with the workshop. There's only this one small window in here which faces northeast, so it never has sun coming in through it. So how do we harness all that beautiful light? I regularly go to the scrap metal place to buy bits for various film projects. So I had this old sheet of aluminium lying out the back, but you could also do the same with the silver side of a reflector. I raised it up on a couple of car tyres, tied a string to the top to be able to set the angle, and boom, we have beautiful sunlight streaming straight in. I don't know if you guys have used hazers before, but the crucial thing is that you do enough wafting so that you don't see any of the smoke. Otherwise it just looks like you're in a building that's on fire, which isn't the look we're going for. But the bits of smoke get trapped under shelves and stuff, so you really have to get everywhere, otherwise they can just keep creeping out. One really cool thing about bouncing the sunlight like this is that the angle of it coming into the space doesn't change. So even though the sun is travelling across the sky up there, because your bounce board is staying in one position, the angle coming into the space stays the same. To be honest, I'm really surprised how long this is lasting without me having to adjust the angle of the sheet of metal. I thought it would, every sort of 10 minutes I would have to change the angle, but it's probably been up there for 40 minutes now, 45 minutes, and I haven't changed anything. So that's quite cool. So this is with diffusion on the window. and this is without. So this is the only light source in the room. It couldn't be simpler. I could have just left it like that, but I decided to place the same tiny little battery LED light just to give a bit of light to the foreground workbench stuff and add a little colour. In my opinion, there are no rules on lighting, it's just sort of... So here we are back at the lake. Again, choosing what time of day to shoot in your desired location is key here, but we have different options of how to shoot using the sunlight, that is, while it's actually up in the sky. Where you choose to position your subject in relation to the camera and the light source, this is known as blocking. Either way, for a wide establishing shot of your subject, there will be no diffusion used. Then, as we move in for the closer shots, often I'll bring in diffusion too. This makes the hard sunlight soft and much more flattering for faces, smoothing skin, ideal for interviews, pieces to camera or commercials. The wide shot doesn't need it simply because their face is so small in frame you cannot see whether the light hitting them is hard or soft. For fictional narrative work, you may well want the harder sunlight as it actually looks, a bit more real and gritty. As this is a video about inexpensive lighting gear, I thought it was worth telling you this. My large 6x4 diffusion frame cost about $4 to make. I made it from scrap metal and a bedsheet from a charity shop. The closer the diffusion is to your subject, the softer the light is. Here you can see what happens if you double up the diffusion, making the light even softer and wrapping further around the face. If the contrast ratio is too large, as in the shadow side of their face is too dark, then you can add fill light with a white bounce. Make sure that any bounced light you add comes from at least as high as their face, otherwise it may look unnatural. And if you want the contrast ratio larger, as in you want the shadow side of their face darker, then the same as in the guest room, you can use negative fill. It is worth pointing out though, that there is black material, and then there's black material. Look at these two different types of fabric. One is soft and felty and the other's a little bit more shiny. And the shiny one won't be as good for negative fill because it will reflect more light rather than absorb it. As an alternative to having the sunlight coming through diffusion side lighting their face, you can also use the sun directly as an edge backlight and then bounce light off a white surface onto the side of their face away from camera. Just experiment with it, but keep in mind that for more cinematic lighting, you want the shadow side of their face towards camera. In my opinion, there shouldn't be any rules when it comes to lighting. It just depends what you like the look of. So take what you will, play around with it, and hopefully some of this has been useful. Thanks for watching.